was, hooked up to a respirator and all kinds of tubes going in and out of him, and it was awful.
She took him from me and said that it's over with. He's gone.
I went up to the phone and it was David's voice, and he told me he died. I started begging that he could come up and see me, and this deputy on duty said he could. So
the year was 1989, when the Stallings family's seemingly perfect life took an ominous turn. David and Patricia Stallings' 3-month-old son, Ryan, fell ill. In the quiet suburb of Hillsboro, Missouri, the Stallings couple rushed him into a hospital. They were concerned, but they had no idea what was happening to their son. Vomiting, struggling to breathe, and with an insidious poison coursing through his veins, the medical staff feared the worst. He had been poisoned with antifreeze. As accusations loomed over 24-year-old Patricia, Ryan's mother, she was named as a baby killer. Soon, an intensive investigation began. But what was the truth? Why would a first-time mother try to kill her own son? Welcome to M7 Crime Storytime, where we shed light on solved, unsolved, and twisted cases across the world. Today, we're looking at the twisted case of Patricia Stallings. But first, if you haven't subscribed to our channel by now, please consider hitting the subscribe and like buttons. Let's dive deep into the mystery without further ado. Living in Hillsboro, Missouri in 1989 was a charming experience defined by the warmth and close-knit community spirit of a small town. Neighbors knew each other by name and shared a sense of camaraderie that made the city feel like one big family. The strong agricultural roots were evident, with many families engaged in farming and agriculture-related businesses. The simplicity of life allowed for children to play freely in the neighborhood streets, and friendships forged during these carefree moments. Apart from the friendly neighborhoods, the sense of family was strong. Among 1,625 people living in Hillsboro in 1989, one was Patricia Stallings. During the mid-1980s, Patricia was a clerk at a quaint little convenience store in St. Louis. Little did she know that fate had something extraordinary in store for her. A man named David Stallings was a regular customer whose visits became more than just quick stops for snacks and drinks. Their encounters evolved into something special, and in 1986, they began dating. As the years rolled by, their love blossomed. Finally, in 1988, they sealed their commitment by getting married. The vibrant city life of St. Louis welcomed them, but they chose a cozy home in Hillsboro, Missouri. Just when they thought life couldn't get any sweeter, they were blessed with a baby boy on April 4th, 1989. They named him Ryan. Ever since he was born, he suffered from gastric distress. It was not long before their world was turned upside down. In July 1989, just 3 months after their son was born, they witnessed him suffering from alarming symptoms. He was struggling to breathe and vomiting incessantly. Ryan was rushed to Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital on July 9, 1989. The dedicated medical team sprang into action right away. It wasn't uncommon for newborns to face health issues, but it became a problem when the symptoms did not reduce even after treatment. The medical staff put Ryan in the ICU immediately and took blood samples to check for infections. Ryan's father, David Stallings, said that the staff did not know what was wrong with him. He said, "It was just a shock to see a little baby incapacitated the way he was. It was to the point where they said, well, they don't know how long he's going to be here."
It was to the point where they said, well, they don't know how long he's going to be here. We don't know what's wrong with him yet, so you might as well just go to the waiting room and stay out there until we can tell you what's wrong.
he was, hooked up to a respirator and all kinds of tubes going in and out of him, and it was awful.
David and Patricia rented a hospital room to be available whenever they were needed by the doctors. Hours were passing by, but there was no improvement in Ryan's health, nor could the doctors identify the problem he was facing. In the meantime, the hospital staff made a shocking discovery. Ryan's blood showed an unusually high level of what they believed to be ethylene glycol, a toxic component found in antifreeze.
Acetone is in fingernail polish remover, for example.
And she goes, do you have any in the house? Patty uses it on her fingernails to remove her old fingernail polish. He goes, well, that's got acetone in it. I said, okay. He said, do you have antifreeze? I said, yes, I have antifreeze. I just rebuilt the radiator on my vehicle.
The staff was polite to the Stallings couple when they informed them that their son would recover. But no doubt, everyone in charge of Ryan's safety was suspicious of the couple. Patricia and David were not allowed to be in Ryan's room alone. They were not permitted to be by the bedside, and every time they were in the room, the presence of doctors and nurses was made necessary.
You know, that bothered me, but I still didn't understand because I wasn't looking at it the way they were, I guess.
The detectives were called in, and David and Patricia Stallings were taken into separate rooms for interrogation. In Patricia's words,
They were saying that they knew that that baby had been poisoned by either me or my husband. It infuriated me. And I was devastated. I was blown away. I just could not believe that they could even think. I mean, Ryan was my world. You know, Ryan, he was so beautiful. He was perfect.
following the test results, the safety of the infant Ryan became a top priority. So when his condition improved, he was released from the hospital. But the Stallings couple were not allowed to take him home. Instead, Ryan was placed in protective custody.
A social worker come up to us and told us that they were taking custody of Ryan from us. And at that point, I became very angry. Why are you doing this to us, is what I told her. And she said, well, this is policy. When there's a suspected poison, we take children from the parents and put them in foster care.
His parents were allowed to see him for 1 hour every Thursday.
Ryan knew when we met him the first time, he was so happy to see both of us again. He just smiled, the biggest smile you could ever possibly see on a baby's face.
I just could not wait till Thursday. You know, my whole week, I would tell everybody over and over and over how last Thursday went.
Despite this, Patricia Stallings was granted a brief period of alone time with her son on the 6th visit on August 31st, 1989. It was the visit when David's parents were invited for the first time. About 20 minutes later, Ryan's grandparents decided to leave, so David escorted them out and walked down the hall, leaving Patricia alone with Ryan. David was back in the room within 45 seconds at the most. However, something was not right. Ryan's health seemed to deteriorate again when he suffered from another bout of uncontrollable vomiting, only 3 days after the visit. The medical team acted swiftly, and to everyone's surprise, the issue was that Ryan had been poisoned once again. Not only that, the detectives made an important discovery. They had found antifreeze at the Stallings house. So, in the aftermath, on September 5th, 1989, when Patricia and David were getting into their car, some police officers asked them to stop. Patricia invited them into the house, but the officers told her that she wasn't allowed inside the house and immediately handcuffed her. Patricia Stallings found herself arrested on assault charges.
I knew it wasn't true. I didn't care what they thought. I just thought, well, you know, I'll be home in a couple hours. This will be over with. You know, I'll get to go be with Ryan. And then the day turned into a night. And then it got really serious. I got really scared.
While his mother was behind bars, Ryan was treated for ethylene glycol poisoning. But everyone knew that he was slowly dying even after being placed on life support systems. Despite the best efforts of the medical staff, his young life was on the verge of ending, so they told David to contact a minister and get him baptized. David wanted his wife, Patricia, to be there, but the judge could not let it happen. He said that, "I'm not going to let a baby killer up there."
And I said, this lady did not kill this baby.
On September 7th, 1989, the doctors consulted with David on whether they should turn the life support machine off, and David unwillingly agreed.
I told him, fine, go ahead and shut the machines down. But I wanted to be in there with him. So for 3 hours, I sat there with him in my arms, knowing that Patty couldn't be there. watching this meter on this machine go down each time his heart would beat. It was hard. It's something I would never ask anybody ever to do.
At 6:30 p.m., one of the doctors shut off the machine to monitor his heart rate.
She took him from me and said that it's over with. He's gone.
So, on September 7th, 1989, just 2 days after he was admitted to the hospital for the second time, Ryan succumbed to the effects of the poison. Patricia was informed about this almost 3 hours later, around 9 p.m.
I went up to the phone and it was David's voice, and he told me he died. And I started begging that he could come up and see me, and this deputy on duty said he could. So
A 24-year-old mother had poisoned her own son, or that was something the news channels were reporting. The gravity of the situation couldn't be ignored, and the charges against Patricia Stallings were elevated to first-degree murder, and she was held without bail. It was a much-reported case, and the severity of the crime was not about to go unnoticed. So when Patricia requested to attend her only son's funeral, she was denied that opportunity. The authorities sought to uncover the truth behind this devastating loss. While Patricia Stallings awaited trial, she discovered that she was pregnant again. Another chapter of heartache was about to unfold in front of her. In the midst of her incarceration, she gave birth to another baby boy, David Jr., on February 17, 1990. He was 1 month premature. Tragically, he too faced a series of concerning symptoms, mirroring those that had affected his late brother Ryan, even though he'd not been in contact with his mother after his birth. In a twist of fate, David Jr., or DJ, was diagnosed with methylmalonic acidemia, MMA, a genetic condition that produces propionic acid, a compound different from ethylene glycol by just one carbon atom.
It would be very simple to confuse the diagnosis of MMA with multiple poisonings because the symptoms are very similar. But more importantly than that, MMA and other similar disorders are very rare, and the majority of doctors either will never have seen a case, or if they have seen a case, didn't know that they saw it and actually confused it.
The diagnosis was a critical piece of information, shedding light on the tragic circumstances that had befallen both of Patricia's sons. David Jr. recovered from his ordeal, but David Sr. was not allowed to take his own child back home. Instead, he was placed in foster care. While the fate of baby David was being decided, on the other hand, a legal battle ensued. This new angle of her second son being diagnosed with MMA rewrote Patricia's story, and her defense team had a strong and valid argument by now. She said, her defense attorney, Eric Rathbone, sought to introduce the theory that Ryan had died of MMA, pointing to the siblings' diagnosis as a crucial factor. But the prosecutor, George B. McElroy, disagreed, considering the diagnosis irrelevant to Ryan's death. While her defense team claimed that she was alone with Ryan for about 45 seconds on the 6th visit, the prosecution claimed that Patricia had anywhere from 3 to 8 minutes during which she fed Ryan using a bottle. They suspected that she'd poisoned that bottled milk with antifreeze or ethylene glycol. David Stallings provided a testimony in his wife's favor, claiming to have seen the bottle. He said that Ryan was getting cranky, so he took the bottle out of the bag and started feeding him. David highlighted that there was no smell or discoloration. In his words, there was nothing done to that bottle. Absolutely nothing.
One bottle, which was identified as the bottle she had fed the baby with, actually contained traces of ethylene glycol. That bottle had actually been prepared by the foster mother and retrieved from the baby bag during the visit, but the state believes, and certainly circumstantial evidence suggests, that she slipped ethylene glycol or antifreeze into the bottle during that feeding. Ryan was taken from the visit by the DFS worker to the foster parents' home, but later that day, or actually early the next morning, was taken to what we call respite home, a temporary foster parents who kept them just for the weekend. The second set of foster parents, not knowing what the child was like, may well have overlooked symptoms that the first set would have seen.
When the defense team argued that Ryan died of natural causes, the prosecutor, McElroy, said, "You might as well speculate that some little man from Mars came down and shot him full of some mysterious bacteria." Soon enough, a significant breakthrough occurred in Patricia Stallings' case. Defense attorney Eric Rathbone managed to obtain copies of crucial notes written by Assistant Prosecutor John S. Applebaum. These notes revealed that the doctor who declared Ryan's death had indeed considered the possibility of an MMA diagnosis. However, at the time, no test had been conducted to confirm this potential medical condition.
First cases in the family are often missed, and it's only when it reoccurs again that the medical practitioners are tipped off to the fact that this may well be a genetic disorder, and maybe the first child had that as well.
The discovery of these notes opened up new avenues of inquiry and raised questions about the original assessment of Ryan's cause of death. Prosecutors, however, stood firm in their stance, asserting that ethylene glycol, found in Ryan's blood, and propylene glycol, that's formed due to MMA, were very different from one another. They emphasized that even if Ryan had MMA, they still believed he'd been poisoned. The revelation of these notes prompted further scrutiny of the evidence presented and the validity of the initial conclusions drawn by the prosecution. As the trial progressed, Patricia wanted her attorney to call character witnesses to testify on her behalf, but her wishes went unheeded. The presiding judge, Gary Kramer, concurred, ruling that the theory could not be advanced without concrete evidence that Ryan had indeed been affected by MMA. Ultimately, on March 4, 1991, the court found her guilty of first-degree murder, and she received a life sentence. David passed out after hearing the verdict and was rushed to the hospital. He knew his Patty could not have hurt her own child. The spotlight on Patricia Stallings' case intensified when it was featured on the television program Unsolved Mysteries on May 8, 1991. Among the thousands of people who watched the episode, there was William Sly, a biochemist from St. Louis University. The case was puzzling, to say the least, and he wanted to help shed light on it. So William collaborated with Dr. James Shoemaker, a skilled expert in the field, who served as the director of the metabolic screening lab at the university. William and Dr. James's collaboration led to a breakthrough revelation. The analysis of Ryan's blood confirmed that he had indeed suffered from methylmalonic acidemia, MMA, a condition that had not been previously identified during the initial investigation. This discovery was critical, but even so, the allegations against Patricia stood firm, because ethylene glycol, the toxic substance initially suspected, was not produced naturally in the human body, even in cases of MMA. So even if Ryan suffered from the same condition as David Jr., it did not explain how his blood had ethylene glycol in it. As the case gained further attention, Dr. Shoemaker sought answers and requested information on the methods used to measure ethylene glycol in Ryan's blood. Prosecutor George McElroy agreed to provide the necessary information. What happened next completely changed what everyone thought they knew about the case. The results revealed that propionic acid, a byproduct of MMA, had caused a result that careless observers might have mistaken for ethylene glycol.
I've lost one child to MMA. My second child is stricken with MMA and may not live. He's a year old now, and they're still not sure how to treat him. I lost my freedom. I've lost everything.
Dr. Shoemaker took the investigation a step further by sending samples of propionate spiked blood to multiple laboratories who applied the same testing methods employed in the Stallings case. Some of these laboratories arrived at an incorrect conclusion, suggesting ethylene glycol poisoning as a cause. However, amid the confusion and conflicting findings, the collaboration and expertise of William Sly and Dr. Shoemaker continued to make strides. They sought additional support from Dr. Piero Rinaldo of Yale University, whose insights proved instrumental in shedding light on the case. Rinaldo's thorough examination led him to the conclusion that Ryan's death was not the result of ethylene glycol poisoning, but instead stemmed from MMA. With Ronaldo's testimony supporting the new understanding, a shift occurred in the perspective of prosecutor George McElroy. The mounting evidence, combined with Ronaldo's expert analysis, raised serious doubts about the previous poisoning theory. The possibility that Ryan had not been poisoned began to gain traction, leading to a reassessment of the case. Patricia was filled with hope. Patricia Stallings' legal journey took a positive twist on July 30, 1991, when, after spending about 2 years behind bars, she was granted release pending a new trial. But she was not completely free yet. Patricia was placed under house arrest. As the legal battle continued, the weight of uncertainty and the toil of imprisonment took a toll on Stallings, causing her to lose a significant amount of weight. She said that during this testing period of her life, she relied on her Buddhist faith, from which she gained strength to continue fighting. On September 20th, 1991, a momentous announcement brought closure to the long-fought battle for justice. George McElroy, the prosecutor, held a press conference to reveal that all charges against Patricia Stallings were being dismissed. He offered an apology to her, expressing regret for the hardship she'd endured. Finally, the case against her was dropped.
Unfortunately, we can't undo the suffering that the Stallings have endured during this entire ordeal. And I apologize to them both personally and for the state of Missouri.
David Stallings said, the Stallings family was finally able to welcome David Jr. home in October 1991.
Just want to make up for the year and a half that we didn't have him, and it's hard to make up that much time, but I'm doing the best I can.
Despite the fears surrounding his condition, David and Patricia remained steadfast in their belief that they would help him overcome his challenges. Patricia, in particular, felt a deep sense of relief and happiness to reclaim her life after the harrowing ordeal. David and Patricia decided to take legal action against those involved in the incorrect diagnosis of their late son, Ryan. They filed lawsuits against Cardinal Glennon Hospital, St. Louis University Hospital, the doctors, and SmithKline Beecham Clinical Laboratories. They asserted that the hospitals had neglected to conduct additional testing even after David Jr.'s correct diagnosis of MMA. In 1992, Cardinal Glennon, St. Louis University, and the doctors opted for an out-of-court settlement to resolve the matter. The following year, they also reached a settlement agreement with SmithKline. As a result of these legal victories, the Stallings family received significant financial compensation. However, life's challenges were not yet over for the family. Tragedy struck again when David Jr. passed away on September 17, 2013, at the age of 23. The loss of their beloved son was undoubtedly devastating. Adding to the heartache, David Stallings passed away on April 30, 2019, after a prolonged illness. From the heartache of losing her beloved son Ryan to the joy of being reunited with her second child, David Jr., Patricia's life journey was an emotional roller coaster. There are several cases of false accusations which do not yield the same happy results as in Patricia's case. Even though she won the legal battle, those 2 years spent under the pressure of being labeled a baby killer could not be reversed. Although David Jr. didn't live a long life, he spent his days with his family in their care and love. Patricia could have given the same support to her first son Ryan, but she was not even allowed to attend his funeral, let alone in his hospital room. At least Patricia's love enabled her second son to live 23 years of his life. Do you think the media's portrayal of cases like this impact public opinion? The legal system is designed to seek the truth, but how can we ensure that it remains just and fair, even in emotionally charged cases like this? Let us know your thoughts. Also, we'd love to hear from you. If you want us to cover a case, please mention it in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, stay safe.